rings in a tree, that's where lignans are. So you're literally pulling that color from the lignans as well. And the longer that you leave something in the barrel, the more that you're going out into those rings, the more color you're going to pull into it. And then if you're dealing with a former bourbon barrel or a former sherry barrel, former port barrel, you're getting all that color too. So you've probably seen scotches, kind of the new thing right now. Well, you can only legally use a bourbon barrel in the United States once. That was a law passed about 60 years ago that meant that the people that make the barrels, that the coopers, would always have jugs. So they lobbied for that. You can only use bourbon barrels once. So that means that the bourbon barrels then go to Scotland, they then go to the Dominican Republic, they go down and they age tequila.
Must have been a politician that was a cooper.
Absolutely. Maybe, I don't know. That seems like too hard a word for a politician.
Politics,
It's Cooper, that's a tough job.
Own a cooper company.
Or owning a cooperage. So with these barrels, they're buying barrels that have already been used. They're not typically using new barrels. When you use a new barrel, you're going to get heavy, heavy vanilla. You're going to get all those big bourbon flavors. They're looking to get the flavor, not of the new barrel, of what was in it previously. So when you look at this, there's a lot of scotches right now that are aging in wine barrels because huge companies like Diageo and Pernod that also own wineries can sell themselves those barrels much less expensive than they can buy a sherry wine barrel or something. Sherry wine barrels cost about 1,500 euros right now. So let's say $2,000 or $1,500 maybe today. A bourbon barrel shipped whole from the United States costs $75
Really?
to Scotland. If you're shipping them, and obviously very, very easy to get them down into the Dominican Republic or something like that. So if they're dealing with sherry barrels, you're probably looking at $3,000 for a sherry barrel. So anything, the older it is, if it's been aged in a sherry barrel like this, that's going to add to the cost of it too. If it was just bourbon barrels, you could be looking at a $20 run. So that's a really, really big factor in the pricing. And one of the things that completely blows me away about rum, and Dennis and I talked about this a lot the last time I was here, the fact that you can buy something that has spent 21 years in a barrel for like $50 is unbelievable. I mean, somebody tasted that, horrible job, year after year. Somebody babysat that, all kinds of quality control, and you lose a lot of the contents to evaporation. So by the time that you bottle something that has a 21-year-old product in it, and you have 21-year-olds, what's a 21 Macallan right now? $300? So to find something,
25 of them counts, $600.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, just crazy, which is fine. I understand where they're coming
How
from.
many would you like, sir?
Yeah, a case,
Okay.
a six
Yes,
pack.
please.
I have 2 bottles at home, so
So this one, you don't have to like it better or worse, it's different. It's very, very different. The mouth feels completely different. This one, the alcohol comes through more. They were the same proof. This one tastes hotter to me. It has more spice to it. Maybe a little bit more brightness. This one is only aged in the bourbon and then the sherry, so this doesn't have any kind of heavy port wine in it. And then the fact that it's a sugarcane distillate, not a molasses distillate, is just going to make for a lighter product. I don't know.
This one, I don't know rum, but to me, this one was quite a bit sweeter than the first one.
Definitely sweet sugarcane,
Yeah.
because you're using sugarcane as opposed to molasses. Sugarcane sweeter. So I mean, it makes perfect sense by the time you get through. These are also, rums are going to be twice distilled, and that's really important. Every time you distill something, you remove flavor from it, you remove texture from it, you remove mouthfeel from it. So vodkas like to brag that they have been distilled 6, 7, 8, 23, 150 times. That's also through a column still, which is just a still with a bunch of plates in it. That's not something going through a pot still. These are going to be small pot stills, and they're going to be distilled twice. And so when you do that, you're not removing those layers of flavor from it every time. And two, if you, probably not, but if you've ever looked at copper under a microscope, copper looks like a scouring pad. It has almost like little fingers.
He has.
He has. So when you look at it, it's actually pulling sulfur notes. It's pulling all kinds of off notes. If you distill something twice, you're going to leave more of that in. With rum, that's fine. We're dealing with really sweet stuff. Yeah.
Where do you think the intellectual property is it in the distilling process?
They say, I know in whiskey, and I couldn't say it with 100% certainty with rum, but with whiskey they say that 70% of the flavor comes from the barrel. So you have to be very picky about the barrels that you're using. A lot of it too, most of these distilleries have been open for decades, in some cases hundreds of years. And especially if you started as an illicit distillery, you didn't have any scientific knowledge that would allow you to go out and say, I want a tall still so that I have really light distillate. You know, you were confined. If we were going to build a distillery here, the still can only be as
Let's
tall
do
as,
it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's get a distilling license. But the still can only be as high as the ceiling. You know, there's all kinds of those things. So these guys weren't scientific about it when they designed the distilleries. They were really constrained by all of that. So your creativity has to come out somewhere else. So you can distill, I mean, they could distill these 10 times if they wanted to. We would end up with vodka by the time that we got done with this. It would be perfectly clear.
Now, I read that Macallan is a sherry cask.
Interesting things about this. This one is more like scotch. If you look at the bottle, it says 21 years old. This one is a minimum of 21 years old. This one is actually, they're gonna bottle a 30-year-old hopefully for us this year. This is 21 to 29-year-old rum. All aged in bourbon barrels, nothing else. So there's no wine barrels used in this at all, so it's gonna be really different from the other two. But also there's no 5-year-old rum or 10-year-old rum or 15-year-old rum. This is 21 to 29-year-old rum. So like Scotch, the age on the bottle is the minimum age of what is in the bottle. This is not, it's molasses. Yep. So this is a molasses-based rum, but you still, because they're not using wine barrels, you're gonna get a very different viscosity.
But you said saffron means sugarcane harvest.
It means
but this is
sugarcane
from
harvest.
molasses.
It's made from molasses. They still have to get molasses as a byproduct of sugarcane.
Right.
So,
Barrel?
yep, all bourbon barrels. So 21 years straight in bourbon barrels. Says it right on the bottle. I had actually never had this until I moved here and started working for Stoller. I'd never seen this. We don't get distribution in Nebraska, but I've used it actually a couple times at Scotch tastings. I'll just throw it in the middle of the Scotch tasting and say, like, what do you think it is? How old do you think it is? And people almost think it's a bourbon or a Scotch.
Right,
I mean, it's got
right.
so many bourbon notes in it. So where some rum tends to be really sweet and sometimes whiskey drinkers don't like it, to me this is a total whiskey drinker's rum. And this is one, like I said, I was drinking this on the rocks the other night. I just think it's fantastic. This one, again, this actually was the master distiller at Havana Club. He was the master distiller at Havana Club for 21 years. He left when Castro came over, started this company. Were you toasting me?
No, I was asking questions on how to cigar or glass.
Well, when you raise the glass, I think you're toasting me.
Okay, fine.
Cheers. Yeah.
So if you're drinking it on the rocks, do you not like it that much?
I love it. But the other night, I needed...
At the beginning, drinking it on the rocks?
Yeah, but I'm saying I've tasted it a million times. And so when I want to drink something cold, the other night I put it on the rocks, admittedly. It's fantastic. You're gonna get a ton of bourbon notes, and you notice it's not super dark, so they're probably buying bourbons that were pretty much like in toasted barrels. You're gonna get a lot of honey, a lot of vanilla, and some citrus notes even from the bourbon. Yeah, like literally tastes like honey to me.
No, this one's right now. The other ones I didn't like, oh yeah, it's too sweet.
Well, that's good.
That's yeah. And this one too, like we were talking about with age earlier, this is gonna seem smoother because it's got so much more age on it. It's also kind of the first one where you get a lot of acidity on the back of your palate, and it's got a really long finish. Age gives you acidity, and that's what kind of smooths everything out. So where you just get that feeling in the back of your palate, kind of like ancho chili spice, something like that, that's where it comes from, is that it's so old. I think they're probably just using non-toasted barrels, and so you're just not going to pull as much color from it. This for right now, these guys make they make new rum, and then they sell it to other rum companies. They sell it to a very God, I don't want to say high end. They sell it to a very well-known spiced rum company, and then that company spices it and blends it. But everything that they keep, they age a minimum of 21 years. So they've been doing this, I think, for almost 60 years now. And then, like I said, we're gonna see a 30-year-old from them hopefully this year. But this one to me, 21-year-old, straight 21-year-old rum, and it's like, I don't know, 50 bucks, 60 bucks? 60 bucks a bottle for a 21-year-old distillate. It's just unbelievable to me. So another thing, as these products are aging, just like Scotch or bourbon or anything else, you lose the contents to evaporation. So by the time, and think about how hot it is, down in Panama, in the Dominican Republic, as those barrels are breathing in and out, by the time that you bottle something that's 21 years old, the barrel contents are down to half. So where you originally had 53 gallons of distillate, you're dealing with 25 gallons by the time they bottle this. Yeah, so it's, oh yeah, absolutely.
They lose that much?
Oh yeah. Somewhere that hot, in Scotland, they lose 2% of the contents a year. Because it's colder. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with older.
What's that?
Nothing
Never
wrong with
anything
older.
wrong with older.
I like her.
21 to 29, because they're So this one, I don't know, did anybody else get anything interesting out of this? Or it's just good?
That was just good.
Yeah.
It's good. I like the taste. I like the light.
I mean, they're all three really good. They're all three at the same alcohol percentage. They're all three, some of them have some much older product in them. I mean, both of them we dealt with. One had an 18-year-old, one had 21-year-old. This is 21 and older. So really, they're very comparable. But this one, you've got a molasses-based rum that's just older and all bourbon rum. So none of that wine influence. You don't see it in the color. You don't get it on the palate. It's not tannic. It's a lot more acidic. It's a completely different animal.
It's the best rum that tastes like a bourbon.
It's pretty much, yeah. But even like Scotch drinkers will get tripped up with this.
It's like Belvedere, best aged Scotch. It tastes like bourbon.
So a long time ago, when they while you're finishing this one up, because we're gonna switch to tequila. Originally, all rum up until about 60 years ago would have been sugarcane rum, all of it, because they didn't realize that you could make a distillate out of molasses. But what they would do is they would go back and add molasses for color, and that was also the original spiced rum. So the original kind of Captain Morgan's, if you found a bottle, I don't even know if they were around then, but if you found a bottle of spiced rum that was 60, 80 years old, it would have been a white distillate. It would have been like a Bacardi white with a bunch of molasses added to it. So that's where the color would have come from, that's where that spicy note would have come from. So when companies like Captain Morgan and Sailor Jerry are making those, that's what they're going for. They're going for white rum with molasses notes. Nope, not at all. Nope, they don't have anything added to it. When you take sugarcane is like a little stalky. I mean, so you actually harvest it and then you go through and press it and juice comes out of it. When you finish doing that, then you'd actually go through, you add lime to it. Not lime like the fruit, like you add lime like the chemical compound, and it solidifies a bunch of it on top, and then they actually take all of that off and break it up, and that's what turns into sugar. And then you can put all the gunk that's left at the bottom as they go through and boil it.